October surprise, Social Security changes no one is talking about. While the country was busy arguing over politics, Washington slipped something through the cracks. A move so quiet, most retirees won't notice it until their checks look different. But by then, it may already be too late. Here's where it all begins, the announcement nobody heard. Chapter 1, the announcement. Nobody heard it happen quietly, in October. No press conference, no bold speeches, not even a whisper on the evening news. Washington made a move on Social Security, and unless someone was watching the fine print, the change passed in silence. While headlines screamed about elections and scandals, a decision slipped into law, one that directly affects the retirement checks of millions. The government knew most people wouldn't notice. The technical language was buried in documents only policy experts ever read, but behind the jargon was something big, a shift that alters how much retirees keep and how much they lose. For years, Social Security changes came with fanfare, announced, debated, and spun on every channel. But this time, the October surprise arrived like a shadow. By the time retirees realize it, it won't be a future debate. It will already be their reality. And this was only the first move, because hidden inside that announcement is a trap that quietly turns a raise into a tax bill. Chapter 2. The taxation twist. On paper, the October change looked like good news. Social Security checks were set to rise, a little extra each month, a little more breathing room for seniors already stretched thin. At first glance, it felt like Washington finally delivered something positive. But here's the tension. With Social Security, nothing is ever that simple. The moment those checks grow, a hidden formula wakes up, a formula written decades ago that decides how much of those benefits the IRS can claw back. It's called provisional income, and once it crosses certain thresholds, up to 85% of Social Security suddenly becomes taxable. Imagine thinking you've gained $200 a month, only to watch a chunk of it evaporate when tax season arrives. That's the payoff. The October surprise wasn't just a raise. It was a trigger, a trap that transforms what should have been relief into a new bill for millions of retirees. And here's the cruelest part. Most won't even realize what happened. They'll only notice when their refund shrinks, or when their tax preparer tells them their raise pushed them into a higher bracket. But the tax twist is just the beginning, because if the IRS doesn't eat away at the new benefit, Medicare is waiting right behind it, ready to siphon off what's left. Chapter 3, Medicare's silent siphon. Every October, retirees wait for the same headline, the new cost of living adjustment, or COLA. It's supposed to be a raise, a small boost to help keep up with rising prices. And when Washington announced this year's adjustment, it sounded encouraging. A few percent. More each month, a sign that the system was keeping pace with inflation. But here's the tension. At the very same moment those COLA raises are announced, Medicare quietly adjusts its premiums. And for millions of retirees, those premiums rise by almost the exact amount of their Social Security increase. It's a shell game, one hand giving while the other takes away. The government calls it adjustment, retirees call it robbery. The payoff comes when the numbers hit the bank account. A retiree might see an extra $40 added to their Social Security check, only to watch 35% of it disappear into Medicare premiums. Some end up with almost nothing left. Others even find their net checks are smaller than the year before. And yet, Washington still calls it a raise. This is the silent siphon, a system that promises relief but designs it so the relief never reaches the people who need it most. And as unfair as that sounds, it's only one piece of the October surprise. Because lurking in the background is another rule, one that doesn't just siphon money, but exposes a rigged game at the very core of Social Security. Chapter 4. The rigged tax cap. Social Security was built on a simple promise: everyone contributes, and in return, everyone earns the right to a secure retirement. It's the kind of system that's supposed to treat a nurse, a teacher, and a truck driver with the same fairness it gives a lawyer or a CEO. Every paycheck shows the deduction. Every hour worked feeds into the same pool. For working Americans, there has always been a sense of duty. Pay your share now, and when the time comes, the system will pay you back. But here's the tension. That promise of fairness doesn't stretch as far as most people think. Hidden in the structure of Social Security is a ceiling, a rule known as the tax cap. In 2025, that cap is set at $176,200. And here's what that means. Once a person earns above that amount, Social Security simply stops collecting taxes on every additional dollar. The system looks away, the millionaire keeps climbing, but the contributions vanish. The numbers tell a story most Americans have never been told. Imagine a school teacher making $65,000 a year. She pays Social Security taxes on every single dollar she earns, from the first to the last. No exemptions, no escape. Now picture a corporate executive with a salary of $1.2 million. He pays Social Security tax on only the first $176,000. Everything beyond that, over $1 million in income, goes completely untaxed by the system that ordinary workers fund. The payoff hits like a gut punch. The teacher shoulders the full burden. The executive gets a free pass worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And year after year, this imbalance drains the system while shielding the wealthiest Americans. It's no accident, it's by design. A rigged cap that protects high earners while forcing middle-class workers to carry the load. And here's where the October surprise becomes even more unsettling. Instead of tackling this unfairness, the new changes ignored it. Worse, they reinforced it. By locking in the cap, Washington quietly made sure the system would continue to lean on everyday workers. Retirees, already struggling with tax traps and Medicare siphons, now live under a structure that asks more of them and less of those who can afford it most. The truth is, if that cap were lifted, if every dollar of income were treated equally, Social Security could be funded for generations without raising the retirement age or cutting a single benefit. But Washington won't budge, because the people who profit from the cap are often the same people writing the rules. And yet, buried deep within the October changes is something almost nobody expected. For once, it wasn't just another trap. It was a gift, a hidden provision designed to give retirees a little breathing room, a chance to keep more of what they've already earned. Almost as if Washington wanted to tuck one silver lining inside a storm of bad news. Chapter 5, the quiet game changer. For most of October, the headlines ignored Social Security. The noise was all about politics, polls, and power plays. But hidden in the same set of changes that piled new burdens onto retirees, there was something different, something quietly generous. The setup is this. Tucked away in the language of the October adjustments was a provision almost no one talked about. It didn't make the nightly news. It didn't trend on social media. Even financial analysts overlooked it at first. But for retirees who pay attention, it may be the one piece of this October surprise that actually feels like relief. Here is the tension. Washington has a habit of giving with one hand and taking with the other. Retirees have been conditioned to expect disappointment, a raise that disappears into taxes, a benefit that shrinks under Medicare premiums. So when people hear there is a new provision, most assume it's just another trick, another illusion. And maybe that's why this change slipped by without recognition. Nobody believed it could be real. But the payoff is undeniable. The October surprise included a brand new deduction worth $6,000 for seniors over 65. That means lower taxable income. That means more breathing room on tax returns. And that's not all. The change went further, expanding protections so that nearly 90% of Social Security recipients no longer owe federal income tax on their benefits. For most retirees, that means their monthly checks are now tax-free. Think about that for a moment. After decades of paying into the system, of watching deductions pile up on every paycheck, retirees finally get to keep more of what they earned. No gimmicks, no hidden clawbacks, just a simple shift that leaves real dollars in real pockets. It's the kind of move Washington could have celebrated, but instead, they buried it. No speeches, no press release, just a quiet gift wrapped inside a package of traps. Why? Because acknowledging it would raise too many questions. If lawmakers admit they can remove taxes on benefits for 90% of retirees, why didn't they do it sooner? Why was it hidden until October? Why is it presented like a secret instead of a victory? The silence around this provision says more than the text itself. For retirees who discover it, this game changer feels like a long overdue reward. But as with everything in the Social Security system, the celebration doesn't last long. Because even this win is haunted by the cruelest illusion of all, the promise of COLA raises that never actually protect against inflation. Chapter 6, the COLA illusion. Every year, Washington makes the same promise: Social Security will rise with inflation. The annual cost of living adjustment, or COLA, is supposed to protect retirees from being swallowed by higher prices. It's meant to be a shield, a guarantee that no matter what happens to the economy, benefits won't lose their value. On paper, it looks like protection. But here's the tension. The formula behind COLA doesn't reflect real life. Washington calculates adjustments using an index that underestimates the true costs retirees face. It doesn't capture the rising price of groceries, the climb in prescription drug costs, the surge in rent, or the endless creep of utilities and gas. Instead, it paints a picture of inflation that looks tame, compared to the reality seniors live with every single day. The payoff, if you can call it that, is brutal. Retirees see their Social Security checks go up by 2 or 3%, only to realize that Medicare premiums rise by almost the same amount. That extra $40 a month? Gone, swallowed by the healthcare system. And the bills keep coming. Groceries, rent, medicine all climbing faster than COLA ever keeps up. Many retirees end the year with less purchasing power than they had before the so-called raise. It's the cruelest illusion of all. A promise of protection that, in reality, delivers nothing but frustration. Washington points to the numbers and insists seniors are being taken care of, but when retirees stand in the checkout line at the grocery store or open their utility bill, the truth is impossible to ignore. Their money doesn't stretch as far. Their raise vanished before it even reached their hands, and this is where the October surprise shows its full face. It wasn't just about taxes. It wasn't just about Medicare. It wasn't even about the rigged cap. It was about conditioning an entire generation to accept scraps and call it security. Because once the illusion is exposed, the question becomes unavoidable. If this is how the system works today, what happens tomorrow? Chapter 7, the truth revealed by now, the pattern is impossible to ignore. The October surprise wasn't just one small policy tweak hidden in the fine print. It was a cascade of moves, stacked carefully on top of each other, each one designed to look harmless until the impact landed. Taxes disguised as raises, Medicare premiums disguised as adjustments, a rigged tax cap disguised as fairness, and COLA increases disguised as protection. Layer by layer, the illusion was built until retirees were trapped inside a system that takes back almost everything it claims to give. But inside that storm of bad news, there was something no one expected: the quiet game changer. A hidden provision that finally gave retirees a break, a bigger deduction, a lighter tax burden. For once, a rule that meant more money stayed where it belonged, in the pockets of the people who earned it. It was like finding a small candle burning inside a dark room, easy to miss, but powerful enough to prove a point. And that point is this: Washington has always had the power to make Social Security fairer, to make it sustainable, to make it work for the people who need it most. The October surprise exposed something they never wanted ordinary Americans to see: the truth that the system isn't locked in stone. It isn't fate. It isn't unchangeable. It's built on choices. And those choices can be rewritten overnight. Think about what that means. Every trap retirees have lived under for decades. The tax twist, the Medicare siphon, the COLA illusion. None of it is natural. None of it is destiny. It was written, line by people in Washington. And if it can be written, it can also be erased. That is the real October surprise. Not just that, changes happened in silence. Not just that the media ignored it, but that Washington, maybe for the first time in a generation, showed its hand. They admitted through action what retirees have suspected all along: the weight crushing them is not inevitable. It's intentional. The system bends for the powerful, and when the pressure mounts, it can bend the other way too. The emotional payoff is staggering. For decades, millions of Americans have been told to accept less security, less fairness, less dignity in retirement. They've been told the money isn't there, that the program is running out, that sacrifice is the only option. Yet in one quiet October change, Washington proved that was never the full story. The money was always there, the rules could always be adjusted, the relief could always be delivered, they just chose not to. And when that truth finally sinks in, the illusion breaks. Seniors realize their checks don't have to be devoured by taxes. Their COLA raises don't have to vanish into Medicare premiums. Their contributions don't have to be capped while millionaires skate free. They begin to see what Washington fears most: that fairness isn't a dream, it's a decision that could be made tomorrow if enough people demand it. This is the October surprise no one is talking about. Not just a policy change, not just another adjustment buried in the fine print, but a wake-up call. A revelation that retirement security in America doesn't depend on the generosity of politicians. It depends on the courage of ordinary Americans to question a system that was never designed with their best interests at heart. And now, for the first time in years, the question is on the table. What happens next is no longer up to Washington alone. It's up to the millions of people who built the system, paid into it, and now refuse to stay silent.